What's up, guys? Welcome back to Fit Body Secrets, where my mission is to bring you guys inspiration, motivation, and a ton of tips to help y'all on your fitness journey. And as always, I am going to go ahead and get myself live on Instagram. So just bear with me while I get myself live there. Good morning, Instagram fam. Welcome, welcome. I am pretty excited for today's topic. In fact, I'm just always excited to talk about nutrition, training, fitness, fat loss, all the things. I just love, really the reality is I love talking about things that are literally just eating you guys alive in your head. And the rabbit holes that you go down, because I've been in there. And today I thought I would go down the rabbit hole of insulin and cortisol. Talk a little bit about the roles that they play in our body so that you guys understand a little bit more about them and some signs that there might be some imbalances, along with giving you guys some suggestions and things to kind of consider when we are talking about balancing these hormones. So if you guys are on Instagram and you're watching, or if you're on YouTube or Facebook and you guys have questions about anything, as always, just remember to pop them up in the chat. And then as I get finished up with talking about things, or periodically, I'll just kind of look down and see if anybody has anything to say. If you're saying hello this morning, hello and good morning. Happy Tuesday. So let's kind of get into it today. So let's talk about I think the main thing is, like, most people are afraid of things like insulin and cortisol. They kind of become the scapegoat of, like, oh my God, I'm putting on this extra belly fat, or I can't lose weight because my cortisol levels are high. And today I want to kind of get you guys to understand a little bit more about how these hormones work in your body so that you can understand how to optimize them. So if you're somebody, all right, let me get my cat off of here. Get down, go. If you're somebody who is training hard, specifically women, you're eating super clean, you're trying to eat clean, you're just struggling with fat loss, you're struggling with energy, you're struggling with cravings, you're finding yourself putting on more body fat, primarily in your midsection area, or you're just having a hard time losing that fat. I want to explain to you how insulin and cortisol levels work, how they're going to impact your fat loss, how they impact your ability to optimize muscle gains, and how to obviously fight some of the negative side effects of them, like cravings, gut issues, and other things. So let's talk a little bit about insulin and cortisol, what they are specifically. And as always, I am sipping on my coffee. Today I have some kind of a cinnamon vanilla flavored syrup. I'm not 100% sure. Full transparency, I just go to TJ Maxx, and whatever they have there on sale, that's what I get. I try and stick to ones that I know I've had before. If you ever are looking for a very low calorie, because they're 0 calorie coffee syrup, go to TJ Maxx. I really like the ones that are like the white chocolate mochas. I do the caramel, but I don't love that one. They have some fun flavors. They have a cookie dough flavor one, a s'mores flavor one. They're all really good. But today I think I have like a cinnamon vanilla. A little tangent, because y'all know I'm going to be sipping on my coffee. It's time. In fact, I slept in a little bit. I slept till 5 o'clock this morning. That's not like me. I'm normally up by like 4 or 4:30. So let's get into it. Let's talk about insulin first. So insulin is essentially, it's a storage hormone. This is why people are like, oh my God, insulin's making me store body fat. But it's also an anabolic hormone. And basically what insulin's job is, it's to respond to the food that you're consuming, primarily carbs and protein. It helps us shuttle glycogen into our muscles and liver, and amino acids into our muscle for repair and recovery. So it's actually a very useful hormone. We're going to talk about some dysfunctions that can happen with it as I get into it. Cortisol is considered the stress hormone. It helps our body mobilize energy. So it helps us utilize the energy that we're taking in. And it's also like I said, it's a stress hormone. So whenever our body is stressed with things, it's going to help shuttle energy to mitigate that stress. It also plays a role in inflammation. So it can help us with natural anti-inflammatory as well. Neither of these hormones are necessarily bad. We need them, but the goal is to get them to work for you, not against you. And there are a lot of things that we can be doing in our lifestyle that can actually impact the way these hormones work. Okay, so what insulin really does. Insulin, as I mentioned, is going to help shuttle glucose and other nutrients into your cells after eating. It helps us to build and repair lean muscle tissue by shuttling amino acids in muscle cells. So those are really positive things that we need from insulin. We wouldn't be able to have the energy we need to get through our day if insulin wasn't doing our job. It is a key player in recovery and growth. So we actually need insulin in our bodies in order for us to build and maintain lean muscle tissue. But the problem that people are facing isn't necessarily insulin itself. It's having a poor insulin sensitivity, so a poor response to the food that you're consuming. Your body's just not responding properly to the amount of calories you're taking in. And this is where people can talk about, I think I'm dealing with insulin resistance. I can go down the rabbit hole of people who are like, I can't lose weight because I'm insulin resistant, or because I'm insulin resistant, or PCOS is causing me to be insulin resistant. This is a fallacy, okay? Insulin resistance is not causing you to not be able to lose weight. It is a symptom of a greater problem, okay? So when energy is stuck in the bloodstream, it gets stored as fat. It's not used by the blood, by the muscles. It's just being stuck. So a really bad analogy here is thinking about being backed up, like having too much shit in your stomach, and it's just sitting there and it's like fermenting and making you feel crappy. Okay. That's what happens when too much insulin is being built up in the bloodstream. Why does that happen? Because the energy that you're taking in is not being burned efficiently. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's not. And this is where people are like, oh my gosh, carbs are making me insulin resistant. No, you're taking in too many calories, and all of that extra glycogen is going somewhere. And when it has nowhere to go, there's no more storage. It's circulating in your bloodstream and waiting for you to burn it off. So it's really about creating an environment where your body wants to utilize fuel that's going to make you more insulin sensitive. And this is where people are like, well, I can't lose weight because I'm insulin resistant. No, you're just not burning through energy the way that your body needs to. And there are some things that you need to change in your lifestyle and your nutrition in order to make that happen. Let's talk a little bit about cortisol, okay? So cortisol also gets a bad rap. Oh my God, my cortisol levels are high. I'm gaining body fat. By the way, I am going to say this. A lot of people have been told that cortisol does increase belly fat. That is a fact. Do you know why? Because the fat cells in your abdomen have 4 times the cortisol receptors than any other body fat cells in your body, because that is where all of your vital organs are. Okay. So there is some truth to the fact that when you're under too much stress, your body is going to respond by storing body fat primarily where it needs it most. Okay. To protect those organs. But cortisol is helpful in the right doses. Cortisol is what wakes you up in the morning. That's what keeps you alive. That's what keeps you from going into just sleeping for 8 days on end. Having the right amount of cortisol in your bloodstream is going to make you wake up every single day. It helps regulate your circadian rhythm. It should rise in the morning and fall towards the evening. It's going to increase your mental focus. So believe it or not, when your cortisol levels are up, you're more alert. It's that fight or flight response. When you're when you guys are in the middle of a CrossFit workout, you're very focused. When you're doing a box jump, you're very focused. You're not thinking about 5 million different things. You're coordinating that one thing. That's what cortisol does for you. It helps to mobilize energy. It helps getting energy where it needs to be. Okay, I need muscle fuel. I'm going to start pumping out cortisol to get my body to release glycogen. Okay. And it also does help with reducing inflammation. This is your body's natural response to stress. It helps shuttle cholesterol to help fight off inflammation in the body. But here's the problem. Just like with insulin, if cortisol levels stay too high from too much stress, under recovery, not getting enough sleep, overtraining, under eating, all of those things, it causes a problem with blood sugar. So when cortisol levels are high, your blood sugar levels are also high. And this is when insulin will kick in more often. And if insulin is constantly high, blood sugar is constantly high, our fat storage potential increases. You get more cravings, you have poor recovery, you have lower energy, and you start to pack on more body fat. Okay. So these two hormones work very much together. We need to have both of them in the right balance. And this is where, when we talk about fat loss, a lot of people are like, is it calories or is it hormones? It's both. You need to have calorie control. You need to understand what your calorie needs are. You need to be getting in enough nutrients. But these two hormones in particular, along with a couple of others, are going to really have an impact on your body's ability to burn through fuel. Okay. So cortisol is going to raise your blood sugar even without food. So believe it or not, how many of you guys can relate to having nights where all of a sudden, like, you just can't sleep through the night? You're like waking up all the time and you don't know why. That's cortisol oftentimes doing its job. It's raising your blood sugar. Okay. Insulin is going to be released whenever that blood sugar is high. So high cortisol increases insulin. A lot of people see the direct relation between carbs and insulin, and that does not have as much of a role, play as much of a role in your insulin sensitivity, the carbs, the small dose of carbs you're eating, as your stress levels do, because the amount of calories you consume in a sitting, if they're controlled, throughout the day, aren't going to raise your insulin levels as much as high stress. Okay. Chronic stress is going to lead to that frequent insulin response, more fat storage, lower sensitivity over time. Whenever we become things like insulin resistant, or we're seeing like we have high elevations of cortisol levels, this usually isn't an acute problem. It started off as an acute problem, but now it's become a chronic condition. And so you could eat really, really clean, but you're still going to struggle with seeing no results or having these problems because your hormonal environment isn't in the right place for you to see the changes that you're looking for. Now, here is where the issue lies. You can focus on what you can't control, or you can focus on what you can control. Okay. So going to the doctor, getting your A1C checked, getting your insulin levels checked, getting your cortisol levels checked. Oh my gosh, I have high insulin, or I have insulin resistance. I have high cortisol levels. My A1C is high, whatever it is. Okay. That is a fact, right? We see it. Okay. But thinking about that, you can't do anything about it. And a lot of people go down the rabbit hole of, I cannot lose weight because of these problems, or you're focusing on the wrong ways to fix it. I've got to cut out carbs. Okay. The real issue is that we have to get you into a state of burning through stored energy rather than storing stored energy. And that's not just carbohydrates. That's overall calorie control. And this is where fat loss, like I've been really saying this a lot in my messaging, is like, fat loss is not about eating less. It's about burning through fuel. Like, that's truly what it is. And that comes down to optimizing, not just by eating less, but by optimizing these hormones. And these hormones can be impacted by too much stress, from chronic undereating, from chronic overtraining, from not prioritizing getting in the right types of foods. And I'll talk more about that. But if you're always putting fuel in your gas tank, but you're never burning through it all because you have sedentary days, because you're super stressed, because you have poor sleep, your body is going to store it. Okay. Essentially, as I mentioned, this is like insulin resistance is like, it's a sign that your metabolism is backed up. Like, you have too much shit in the gas tank. Like, that's exactly what it is. So there are some very basic things that you can do to help this, but it's not just a one day thing. And what happens is y'all get so focused on, what results am I getting today? I don't feel better today. I'm not seeing changes today. The scale's not moving this week. It takes time. You did not develop these problems over the course of, a week or 2 weeks. No, this is a result of a lifestyle that you're living for a period of time. Okay. Here are some things that are common that I see that kind of lead to these dysfunctions. Skipping breakfast is a big one. Okay. I'm not saying that you have to eat right away, first thing in the morning, but if you're not eating when your cortisol levels are high, that's a perfect time when your body is going to be more insulin sensitive to take in nutrients after fasting. You've been fasting all night, your cortisol levels are high. That's going to help with that insulin response. So you should be eating some breakfast. Primarily, you should be getting in some high protein, moderate carbs, moderate fat, a balanced meal. If you're constantly stressed all the time, you have a high stress job, you've got a lot of responsibilities at home, and you're not balancing that stress with parts of recovery, you're going to have elevated cortisol and insulin levels. If you're hitting CrossFit or you're hitting hard training at nighttime, this is going to have an impact on these hormones because your cortisol levels should be dropping at night. And by working out late in the day, you are causing a spike in them. This is something that you're going to have to recognize. And I know that you can't change your work schedule, but this is where the right type of training and nutrition, the right type of post-workout nutrition is essential for you to balance these hormones. Chronic low carb eating, high intensity training, little recovery is a recipe for high cortisol and poor insulin sensitivity. Believe it or not, okay, when you remove carbs from your diet, you are making yourself less insulin sensitive. Our goal when we're talking about burning fat versus burning carbs and all of this stuff, we can kind of go down the rabbit hole of right now, is that we want to be metabolically flexible, okay? And that means knowing that certain times we are burning through glucose and need to support that with glucose, with glycogen. We need to be giving it carbs. And then there are times where we are primarily burning fat. We're not using up glucose. We should be burning fat for fuel, okay? But knowing what you need for your specifics is really important. And oftentimes low carb diets are doing you a disservice. If you're never eating carbohydrates, your body is never getting the signal that there's going to be glucose available for you to fuel your high intensity training. Okay. So we want to have the balance of the two. A big problem that I see is I'm doing everything right. I'm still stuck. I'm eating super clean. I'm hitting CrossFit 5 or 6 days a week. I'm lifting 5 or 6 days a week and nothing's moving much. Okay. You are doing really good things. You're eating good. You're moving. You're getting your workouts in. But what you're missing is you're not moving enough throughout your day. A lot of people also think that their energy expenditure is mostly from exercise. And I want you to think about in terms of time spent throughout your day. You're spending an hour, about an hour a day in exercise. And about 20 minutes of that is high intensity training at most if you're in a CrossFit gym. Okay. So the majority of your energy expenditure comes from the hours outside of your workout. And that's where people are just not moving enough. They're sitting behind it. In fact, I'm standing up right now, right? I don't have insulin problems, but I always make sure that I'm moving. I try not to sit for too long a period of time. I get up and I move. I get up and go for a quick walk. You don't have to go for a 30-minute walk 5 times a day. Just getting up and moving your body throughout the day is really important. In fact, when we talk about steps, it's often not about going for intentional walks. It's often just about making sure that you're making movement, getting up and moving throughout the day a priority. Okay. If your boss is that hard on you that you can't get up and like between your Zoom meetings or between your work meetings, get up and go to the bathroom and take a quick little, stretch, like that's a problem. You need to set some boundaries. And if you work for yourself and you're not setting your own boundaries like that, that's also a problem. You got to make it a priority. Okay. So if you're not moving enough, you definitely need to make sure that you're getting up and moving throughout the day. Some signs that your insulin cortisol balance might be off, and this is a big one, is if you're feeling like you're eating enough calories, but you're just chronically fatigued, like you're just tired, like you're eating, like maybe you're like, I'm that person that like I'm eating, but like I'm just tired all the time. You get a lot of cravings. Maybe you don't have appetite, like hunger cues, like if you were to look at your, meal that you have prepared for yourself, like, that doesn't really look good, but like you have a craving for something. If you're suddenly packing on more belly fat, if you are having a hard time putting on muscle mass, despite training hard, if you are having poor recovery from your workouts, if you're finding yourself like in your workouts feeling like you just feel kind of sluggish. And a big one is if your sleep is off, if you're waking up frequently throughout the night and you can't sleep, that's all signs that your insulin cortisol balance might be off. So now that I kind of hopefully have got you guys thinking a little bit more about these hormones, I want to talk about the things, like I said, that you can control, can control, and you can do something about in order to change these things. Because my whole reason for talking about this is not for you to be like, oh, that's me, I'm stuck. Okay. It's for me to say, oh, okay, I'm onto something. I've known that there's something off. And this is exactly what I need to do to change it. Okay. Let's talk about nutrition. All right. You should be eating balanced meals. All right. So we should have protein, carbs, a little bit of fat, and fiber at your meals. If you're a macro tracker and you are not looking at your fiber intake, you have a problem. You need to be looking at your fiber intake. Okay. If your carbs are all coming from sugary sources, looking at carbs that are going to be a little bit more stable in your bloodstream are important. More complex carbs. Okay. Fruits and vegetables, whole grains, potatoes, and getting in protein at every meal. Okay. Carbs around your training is like the best place to put your carbs. Meal timing doesn't really matter that much in terms of overall energy intake and calorie balance, but there is some optimization that can be had if you're putting your carbohydrates around your training in order to be more insulin sensitive. Carbs in that post-workout window is going to be the best thing for you for building muscle and for recovery, because that's when your muscles are going to be most insulin sensitive. And this is also where we can talk a little bit about the role of, how many of you guys feel like fasted cardio is something that you've used as a strategy. Fasted workouts, primarily low intensity cardio, things that don't require a lot of your central nervous system, can help improve insulin sensitivity if calories are controlled in a deficit. So, for instance, if your energy needs for maintenance are 2,200 and you're eating 17 to 1,800 calories to put yourself in a deficit, and so you worked out 6 a.m. on Monday, you ate a deficit on Monday, and then you stopped eating around 6 p.m., and then that next workout, you're going into it in a deficit in a fasted state, your body is going to be very insulin sensitive there. However, you want to watch out for not doing too much of a deficit, because if you're too much of a deficit, your training will take a tank. So you want to make sure that those sessions aren't about how much am I lifting, how hard am I going in these workouts. It should be more like steady state, things that aren't going to be so stressful on the body. And then afterwards, like I mentioned, that's when you want to take in those carbohydrates. If this is your goal, is to really work on insulin sensitivity, that is a good strategy. I think the biggest thing with nutrition is not to have a fear around food, not to have a fear on carbohydrates, but to focus more on your body utilizing that food. Like when you're eating, it's like my body is going to use this food for what? For recovery, for fueling my workouts, whatever it is. That's really what we need. We need to learn how to fuel our bodies and our lifestyles, not to store that energy. And then the main thing with nutrition is when it comes to what you can control, if your goals are to try and get yourself more insulin sensitive, you want to change your body composition, you want to improve your muscle, you need to be tracking your food and keeping control of calories. That is the one thing that you have complete control over. And you can now see, okay, I see I'm not getting in enough fiber. I've got to increase my fiber. I see where I'm missing carbohydrates. I can add carbohydrates here. It gives you that tool. If you're going to track it, you can change it. If you're going to track it, you're not going to change it, don't even fucking bother. But if you're wanting to see changes, that's one thing that I would suggest. Lifestyle. So that's some nutritional things you need to be making. Lifestyle changes, okay? Sleep is king. I don't care what you all have going on your schedule, okay? Living on 4 hours of sleep a night is literally a recipe for a disaster. So if that's you and you're not willing to make sleep a priority, you're going to be stuck. I'm here to tell you that that's just the way it's going to be. You have got to prioritize sleep. Sleep needs to be a priority, okay? That means that if you're waking, and the best way to optimize your sleep is if you know that you have to wake up every single morning at 6 a.m., you have to backtrack. Okay, how many hours of sleep am I getting now? Maybe you're getting 5 hours of sleep a night or 6 hours of sleep because you're going to bed at midnight. God help you. I don't even know what midnight looks like anymore. I'm fast asleep at that point. But if that's where you're at, okay, I need to get to bed an hour earlier, and I'm going to start going to bed at 11. And you also have to look at your sleep latency. So if you're in bed by 10 and you're not falling asleep until midnight, okay, that's a 2-hour sleep latency. That means that if you want to fall asleep by 10, you need to get in bed by 8. Or we need to work on your sleep latency, which usually means turning off the Netflix, stop scrolling through social media, Stop focusing on what else you can get done at the end of the day and go to fucking bed. Like, just go to bed. Just lay there. Even if you can't sleep, just lay there. Your body will start to regulate. It's not going to happen overnight, but sleep is everything. So my first tip is to backtrack from what time you have to wake up in the morning. Okay. So if you're waking up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m., look at how many hours of sleep you're getting and try and slowly work to getting about 7 to 9 hours a night. Okay. I know where my body feels best. I don't think anybody is going to thrive drinking, getting less than 7 hours of sleep a night. So if you're getting less than 7 hours of sleep a night, you got to make some changes to get at least 7 hours a night. Okay. Walking. So walking after your meals is probably one of the best ways to help improve your digestion and your insulin sensitivity. Okay. Your body is burning calories right then and there. So taking breaks, going for walks, morning movement, going for a walk first thing in the morning or after dinner. This is a great way to connect with your freaking significant other. Like going for a walk together at night rather than sitting in front of the TV, like talking about your day, taking your kids outside, going to the fucking park, like getting outside, especially now that the days are getting a little bit longer. Doing things like that is going to help improve your insulin sensitivity. Taking breaks, taking deload weeks, and making sure that you're working on stress management are also part of lifestyle that you need to also regulate. Okay. You can run on, go mode for so long until your body crashes. That's a cortisol dump. And it's happened to me and it sucks because you're emotional, you're crying, like everything feels overwhelming and you're more overwhelmed because now you can't even manage the day-to-day stuff that you've normally been doing. Okay. So you need to recognize that sometimes you got to know when it's time to take a break. Okay. Nutrition, lifestyle. And then finally, we're going to talk about training. All right. So training is a big thing with cortisol and insulin. Okay. So we want to make sure that we're getting the right dose of intensity. We're getting in enough frequency. We're getting in enough volume. But whatever that is for us, we're getting in enough recovery from it. Okay. So that means that, like I mentioned, nutrition in the post-workout window matters, but it's not always about, this is like the biggest mistake in CrossFit. Like it is not your intensity every day is not the marker of your health and your progress. Like you literally selling out on every single workout is usually stopping you from making progress and burning you out. You need to mix intensities. Some days it's going 70 to 80%. That's the way the majority of your training should be. Once or twice a week, you can sell it on a workout. You can sell it on a lift. But if every day is taxing your central nervous system that much, you are only leading to more dysfunction. Okay, so we want to make sure that you are mixing up your intensity with rest and also with different movements and all of that kinds of stuff. So don't be afraid to take a recovery day. Like if you're, just because you don't go to the gym doesn't mean you can't work out. Like if you see that you're like, man, I'm super tired, I'm stressed, and you see that it's like some kind of like 2-minute max effort on the assault bike and like it's just stuff that you know that like you're just mentally not there for, like don't be afraid, like, you know what, I'm gonna go for a jog today. I'm gonna do some body weight stuff at home. Like that's okay. You're getting movement in, which is good. You're just not focusing on that high intensity stuff. Okay. Your goal is to really train to make your body more responsive, not more stressed. We want a positive adaptation, not a negative adaptation. So we do need stress to create change, but we have to make sure that it's going to be a progressive change or a positive change, not a negative one. That's why intensity modification is so important. Okay. So final thoughts before I kind of check in to kind of look and see if anybody has any questions or anything is that insulin and cortisol are not necessarily your enemies. They're simply signals that your body is either storing too much energy, you're not burning through enough energy, or your body is too stressed. Okay. We need to not think about suppressing them. It's supporting them. And that means getting in the right dose of nutrition, the right dose of training, the right dose of recovery, and making sure that we're moving throughout the day. We really want to look at managing our energy flow, not just by cutting carbohydrates or not just by cutting calories all the time. We have to find the right dose of calories to support our lifestyle and our training, while also making sure that we're keeping ourselves burning through fat, especially if your goals are fat loss. Okay. You want your body to be a high performing machine, whether your goals are to be super fit or just to be fit enough to chase your kids in the park or live your best life. Like your goal is like, I want you to be a high performer in your life. Okay. So if this hit home for you and you're like just realizing right now that your hormones might be holding you back, don't be afraid to reach out to me. I would love to be able to talk to you more about your specific goals, kind of what you're struggling with, maybe what you've been thinking, what you've been doing to see if it is something that's going to work for you. Maybe you just need some more consistency, or if you need a change of plan. So let me just go over to the comments, make sure I'm not missing any questions. Good morning, Holly. Are you talking about those syrups? Yes, I was talking about my coffee syrups. I love them. Let me just look over here on Instagram. Does anybody have any questions about cortisol, insulin, fat loss regarding these hormones before I end the live today? And if you came on here a little bit late, I'll make sure the recording is up for you guys to watch, or you can also find it on my Apple podcast if you're not already subscribed. By the way, I never ask for anything. I really don't. I'll be honest. I really do want to grow my podcast. 100% transparency. I would love to be able to grow my podcast. I love doing this stuff. But I guess the way to grow your podcast is to ask you guys to, whenever you're listening to my podcast, even if you're listening here on live, if you can go on Apple Podcasts and give me a review, or give me a whatever you got out of it, a 5-star on there, if you got some value out of it, I would love that. Thank you, Lucy. Lucy, I am looking forward to meeting you and your husband today. Today is our first call for my fat loss fast track. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, if you guys could do me a favor, like either on YouTube or Apple Podcasts, and you want to show me some love, I would love for you to just go on there and like hit that 5-star, give me a review, something that I never asked for. Maybe I should. Curious if you have ever tracked postpartum. No, I don't have a baby. Post-exercise as postprandial glucose spikes on different nutrition plans. Okay, so here's the thing about tracking glucose with these things and comparing different nutrition plans. I have not done it, but whenever we're looking at things like this, the question I'm always going to ask you is why? Why are we tracking these things? And the main thing is like, as I'm going through here, is the purpose of it, like the why, versus like when we're just looking at an overall balanced diet and we're looking at the change that we can make, those spikes post-exercise and post-meal are normal. So different nutrition plans aren't probably, I'm going to be honest, you're making me want to do one because I've never done that. So Jillian, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to look up some studies on people that have through PubMed. And I want to make sure I get you an educated answer on that. I have never tracked it. But I'm going to be honest, if I was to give you my gut instinct, it's going to have not much of a difference from different nutritional or dietary protocols. If a person's training and calorie intake is equated. So in these studies, I'm going to say that if they're controlled studies and the training modalities are the same, which this is going to be really hard. The training modality is the same. Their stress levels are the same. Their amount of sleep is the same. Everything is the same. And the only thing that's different is their diet. That would really be the only way to really know that it was the nutrition plan that wasn't causing a change in those post-exercise as postprandial glucose spikes. So I'm going to do some research on that. But in my opinion, and that's my biased opinion, that all of those other factors would have to be controlled in order for the data in that study to be accurate or even relevant. So more importantly, I would say what's best is if you're curious for you how different nutrition plans impact your post-exercise and postprandial glucose spikes, I would experiment. You would have to do probably 8 to 12-week studies on different dietary protocols to know which one works best for you, okay? And I'm going to start by just telling you that a balanced diet and getting in the right dose of carbs and fiber for you and your specific goals and your specific body composition, because your body composition also has an impact on your insulin levels, is probably going to be the best thing for you. Okay, so I would maybe get a baseline, but honestly, don't stress about those glucose spikes postprandial or post-exercise, because those are times when your blood sugar should spike. What's more important for blood sugar is, I'm answering your question without answering your question. What's more important for blood sugar spikes is not so much about the daily spikes. Your A1C and your fasted blood glucose are the two measures really that are going to help you the most. And that's just going to be on your blood level. So getting your A1C checked is going to be probably one of the more important things. Hopefully that answered your question, but I am going to do some PubMed research on any studies that have been done on different dietary protocols. But again, I'm going to say with pretty much 99.9% confidence that what I just said was 100% accurate. You doing your own experimentation, calorie control, getting enough carbs post-workout, and looking at your overall A1C and fasted blood glucose is the best thing. Any other questions, guys? That was a good question. All right. Last thing I'm going to end on is this. Don't spend money on expensive cortisol balancing supplements, okay? Or insulin balancing supplements, all right? You don't need them. There's a lot of things you guys can be doing with your nutrition. So like I mentioned here, so don't get don't waste your time and money on that. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of money. In fact, you'd be better off spending money getting your nutrition checked in. Okay, not a plug for coaching, but I'm always here to help. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to sign off. I hope you guys all have a great day. If you guys have any topics that you want me to talk about on the podcast, please feel free to shoot me a DM. I would love to help y'all as much as I can. I love doing these, and I'm always trying to think of like, what do you guys want? I have to get into your head. What do you want to hear from me? What can I help you with? So I have a lot of knowledge, but I don't know what you actually need to know. So I don't know what you don't know. Actually, I do have a pretty good idea what a lot of people don't know, but I don't know what you don't know. So, all right, guys, I'm heading off. I will talk to y'all later.